my name is Scott Ligon. I'm the author of Digital Art Revolution, Creating Fine Art with Photoshop, a book about using Photoshop as a means of personal expression. The book contains dozens of examples, full-color images from some of the most successful and innovative digital artists working today. This video is part of a series of video interviews with artists whose work is featured in Digital Art Revolution, Creating Fine Art with Photoshop. Welcome to the Revolution. Megan, thank you for coming. You work a lot with physical materials. You do stop motion animation, right?
Yes.
Tell us about, you pick a lot of unusual materials that have to do meat and things that have to do with organic materials. Could you tell us a little bit about what materials you use and why those are significant in your work?
I use a wide variety of things. I do have a collection of stop motion puppets I made from clay and leather and wire and bone and some other natural materials. But I mean, I do use a lot of found objects. I reconstruct a lot of found objects to fit what I'd like to do with them. And yeah, I have animated meat, rancid meat, eyeballs, prosthetic limbs, any kind of oddity I can find, really.
And what's the particular appeal of things that are biological in nature that way?
I don't know. I'm very drawn to it. I think I've always been interested in the medical world, and I wanted to be a surgeon or an artist. Mm-hmm. My parents never really understood why. I did not go to one way.
Right. So you kind of combine them in a way.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with the body and with biology and parts that go into bodies that aren't natural, like prosthetics and fake eyes and things like that.
And I think this partially answers my next question, but I wanted to ask you about why stop motion versus other kinds of animation, 3D for instance, or something like that. I suspect the materials have resonance for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There's something to the tactile quality of moving something frame by frame that makes me feel like I'm part of it, and makes me feel like I'm leaving my imprint on each movement. Whereas, in 3D or just on the computer, I don't feel that relationship as closely. Is
it just pretty much straightforward stop motion, or do you combine them ever with other things, or paint into them, or?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to say I'm a purist stop motion animator, but it's not true. I will go and hand paint frame by frame in Photoshop, for example.
And that's a good segue to the next question. I wanted to ask you about Photoshop, since this is a Photoshop book essentially, Digital Art Revolution. So what part does Photoshop play in your process?
I do photo storyboards if I'm sticking to a straight narrative, which my older pieces were definitely a more linear process where I had to set it up. And I would do, instead of a storyboard, I did a photo board, and I would manipulate objects and things so I could kind of frame what I wanted to see.
So would you pose the actual puppets that you would then later animate, so you'd get them in the basic scenes?
Yeah, that was the best way, because I can kind of do things backwards. I make things and then I take the photos, but I do display my sets as works of art in themselves, so I feel like I'm justified in completing them.
Right.
But in the post-production process, it's really about taking that image, controlling it, fixing up certain things that I didn't notice in the filming process, making things, the colors right.
So Megan, tell me a little about your background as an artist and what made you initially interested in stop motion animation.
Oh geez, I mean, it definitely goes back to my love of objects, my attachment, my bizarre attachment to inanimate objects.
All right.
And even as a child, acting, giving personality to things that didn't have faces.
Right.
I would animate without recording them, but I would animate, toys that I had. Even in first grade, I had a teacher in the gifted program who initiated this stop motion project. So
early on, you were really interested and exposed to that then. I would have thought that you started out, drawing or something and kind of made a segue. Did you have a point where you're interested in other kinds of art as well? Or,
I didn't even take the stop motion thing seriously. It's something that I had been playing. I played with all through childhood, all through high school, all through, you know, I never really thought about it as an art form. I grew up in a very small, rural community, so I wasn't exposed to the greater art world until later in life.
And did you consider yourself an artist still? Did you think of yourself that way, or is that just something that was fun and interesting?
Just something fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I thought about it that much until I, you know, decided to go to art school. I don't know, but it didn't have to do with stop motion. It had to do with drawing, painting, and sculpture.
Okay. And when you first went to art school, you went for drawing, painting, and sculpture? Or?
Well, initially I was going to go for sculpture.
Yeah.
That was the plan. I ended up being an illustration major, in which I made sculptural dioramas and take photos of them. So
so
I really can't
so you were
get away.
trying to get back to that.
Yeah. So I was taking photos. I was doing photo illustrations of these 3D dioramas and little and with characters.
Right.
And at the same time, I was learning 3D animation, and so I was becoming, you know, more and more of an animator than anything.
Yeah.
And so combining all three together, kind of. For my senior project, I did a stop motion short.
Right.
And when I realized I could just do everything at once that I liked.
And ever since, that's been the bulk of your professional work, right?
That's really all I want to do.
Yeah.
I can't. It's something compulsive I can't help myself from doing.
Well, that sounds promising then.
So I guess in that way that's why I think of myself as an artist, because I feel like
couldn't not do it.
I have no choice.
Right.
I have to make things move.
Not to belabor the issue of digital technology too much, but are there ways that digital technology has opened up or made things possible in your work that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to consider?
Oh geez, yes. I started out animating on film. Started with Super 8. That was fun.
I've done that.
Yeah, yeah. And then when I went to film school, I went and moved on to 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
And my God, I'm glad that I don't have to use real film anymore, because you lose a frame, you lose the scene.
Right.
And I don't know that till I get the film back.
Yeah.
So yes, digital video, digital capturing, editing, it's just it's made my life much easier. Where you know, and the process is much faster.
So you talked a little bit about your childhood and animating things, and that being kind of the basis of your work or the inspiration for it. I read a statement that you made that talked about childhood fears and how that was also an inspiration. Could you talk about that as much as you feel comfortable with?
Oh yes,
how that,
definitely. But anything that disturbs me or frightens me, by making them move, I kind of feel like I make them kind of cute in a way. You know, it's still kind of scary. And because they're small and I've got control, they're manageable. So I'm taking the nightmare and making it kind of entertaining. Yeah. And therefore dissolving the nightmare altogether.
All right, so Megan, I wanted to ask you about film festivals. Your work is, your films have been in film festivals and traveled all over the world. Have you had a chance to travel with them and appear at some of these festivals?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to go to as many as possible.
So when you go there and you see your films with an audience, how does that change your perception of your work?
What's really great is going to international fests. Absolutely. I think I know what to expect from an American audience at this point. Yeah. And I'm not generally surprised by what goes on there. But as I travel different countries, different festivals, different subcultures, different little niches, I'm very interested in the different ways that my films are received, because I've noticed that there is a difference.
What is the difference? Like, can you give us an example of the range of perceptions?
Certain things that I find, maybe the American audience wouldn't find humor in, a Swiss audience would. They'll laugh at parts that I always thought were funny. Yeah. Maybe. but the American audience finds other things funny or not. And get very different reactions from different places. France, for example, they are very confused by my work.
Really?
Yes. Oh yes. Very confused, intrigued, but very confused.
Is there some quality of your film work that you think of as American, or is there is there a cultural difference, or is it just? I don't know if I can say. Yeah. I am so. Because your work seems pretty universal to me, right? It's essentially it doesn't have words, right?
That's the goal, is that it speaks to a universal audience. Right. So that's why I want to travel more and more, go to as many festivals as possible, go in more residencies. I want to be immersed in all these different cultures, because I want my work to speak universally.
All right, well, on that note, thank you very much, Megan Ehrhart. Really appreciate you doing the interview.